Good evening, everybody. My name is Linda Murray, and I have the great privilege of serving as the current curator of the Jerome Robbins Dance Division, and a virtual welcome to all of you to the New York Public Library. For those of you who haven't connected with us in a while, I just want to say how lovely it is to be in touch with you this way. This is the first dance program that we are doing online since we have been closed to the public in our physical spaces. And it's wonderful to have this, this moment to reconnect and to share our love of dance. And we have a wonderful program for you tonight. I wanted to take a moment to thank some key staff members who are making the program this evening possible. All of our staff in AV services, we really appreciate what you're doing. They're heroes behind the scenes, and they will be helping us out with any tech glitches this evening. And also to our live captioner this evening, Rebecca Coster. We're very grateful for her work. I wanted to note that tonight is the last program that is being overseen by the incredible Evan Leslie, who any longtime attendee of our programs at the Bruno Walter will know that Evan is an exceptional employee of the library and has spearheaded many wonderful programs over the years. He's moving on to an exciting opportunity in Houston. We wish him every success, but we will obviously have a huge hole in our hearts, and he will not be replaced anytime soon. So a very big thank you to Evan, not just for tonight's program, but for the many dance programs he has overseen down the years on behalf of the library. We're excited to have this first program back, but I also wanted to note that there are two other dance programs upcoming this month. On July 29th, our beloved series, David Vaughan's The Dance Historian is In, returns. It will be at 1 p.m. on July 29th, which is our usual Wednesday lunchtime slot. Our special guest host is the dancer Melissa Toogood, who is in Merce Cunningham's company, and she will be showing footage of her career, including excerpts from her time with Merce Cunningham, Pam Tanowitz, and Stephen Petronio. And then on July 30th at 4 p.m., we start a new series called Dancer's Corner, which is a sort of a freewheeling chat room for conversations about dance. And our first guest host for that will be Kevin Winkler, who will be speaking to us about his new book about Bob Fosse called Big Deal, Bob Fosse and Dance in the American Musical. But to get back to tonight's program, the title of tonight's program is Footfalls from the Land of Happiness, A Journey into the Dances of Bhutan, which is also the name of a book recently written by the incredible Karen Greenspan, who is well known to the dance division as one of our most frequent and beloved researchers. She is a dance writer and contributor, most often to Ballet Review and to Natural History Review. The Bhutanese dance archive that lives in the dance division is definitely one of the crown jewels of our collection, and is part of a partnership that we have had for many years with an incredible entity called Core of Culture. And you'll be hearing from some of the people who brought that footage to the library later on in the program. But for now, I'd like to hand it over to Karen Greenspan and learn more about the dances of Bhutan. Karen.
Thank you, Linda, for that incredibly warm and lovely introduction. Thank you, Evan Leslie, the artistic producer at the Library of Performing Arts, for your steadfast support and creative expertise for tonight's event. Thank you, New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, for graciously organizing and hosting tonight's event. Thank you, esteemed panelists, for your presence and your important contributions to tonight's discussion and to this project. Thanks to all of you for logging in this evening to take the journey into Footfalls from the Land of Happiness, a journey into the dances of Bhutan. This book was only accomplished with the support and efforts of many willing hands and hearts. And please know, my heart is full of gratitude to you. I'm most grateful to the Bhutanese people who work tirelessly to keep their rich dance traditions alive. So the dance footage that you will see projected tonight periodically is taken from the Bhutan Dance Project, produced by Core of Culture and it contains more than 500 hours of video recordings of the festivals of Bhutan. It was digitized, made freely accessible to the public by the Jerome Robbins Dance Division. I hope you will be inspired to investigate it for yourself after having this taste tonight. The photos that you will see projected were taken by me. They are from the book, and they will give you a taste for the book and for the dances. This book, Footfalls from the Land of Happiness, is the product of 8 years of research and 5 trips to Bhutan, and it is ongoing. This remote Himalayan country, about the size of Switzerland with a population of just under 800,000, is nestled between 2 giants. You can see it pictured here, China to the north and India to the south. In times past, that northern neighbor would have read Tibet, and this relationship with Tibet is very important to understand the history and the culture of Bhutan. Bhutan is the only independent Vajrayana Buddhist country in the world today, and Vajrayana Buddhism, often known as Tantric Buddhism, is an esoteric form of Buddhism that emerged in India around 500 CE. It quickly spread to the Himalayan region where it took root and flourished. It is noted for its complex rituals and meditations meant to speed the practitioner to enlightenment. Now, Bhutan is also a dancer's utopia, a place where dance is accorded honor, power, and influence. And dance as an expression of Vajrayana Buddhism permeates the psyche, the landscape, the annual calendar, and the day-to-day rhythm of life. This past fall, I returned to Bhutan for trip number 6, a 2-week book tour during which I presented the book in locations across the country. The Bhutanese have a distinctive code of conduct called Driglam Namja, which means the harmonious way of doing things. This manner of behavior and dress was instituted by the founder of the nation back in the early 1600s. And it imbues all occasions and interactions with an elegant politeness and courtly refinement that even extends to book launches. Each of my events was introduced and officiated by 2 distinguished guests of honor, usually one from the government and one from the clergy. The book would be brought on stage, wrapped in the traditional white silk ceremonial scarf called a kata, and tied in a large bow. And in a sublime moment of grace, the 2 guests of honor would each take an end of the scarf, pull, untying the bow, and voila, my book was launched Bhutanese style. When I first came to Bhutan, my husband and I thought we were taking a hiking trip in the Himalayas. We had never before traveled to Asia, the Himalayas, or a Buddhist country. I knew virtually nothing about this part of the world or Buddhism. One morning, our guide brought us to a sacred festival held in the outdoor courtyard of a medieval fortress called a dzong. And there I witnessed the sacred Buddhist dances called cham, and my life was irrevocably changed. And could we please go back to the past slide, where we see the Punaka Dzong, where this festival took place and takes place every year. And these structures are giant fortresses that were strategically built around the country to create defense against incoming invasions. And within these dzongs, you have the headquarters for the government, as well as the headquarters for the monastery for each of the regions. So both the government and the monastic center is housed under one roof. The primal blasts of the long horns, the droning of the oboes, the drama of the rituals and processions, and the beautiful organic dance movement performed not by trained dancers, but by Buddhist monks and lay people, exerted a powerful hold over me. The dances led me on a journey, and this book is the story of that journey. In Bhutan, dance occupies a prime role in the national, cultural, and religious life of every community. We in the West have relegated dance almost entirely to a form of entertainment. But in Bhutan, dance is sacred and absolutely essential to Himalayan Buddhist ritual and the annual cycle of religious events. Western society and religions prioritize the mind over the body. In fact, in most observant forms of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the physical body is disregarded, even renounced as a thing of shame or sin. And certainly these attitudes are extended towards dance and activity of the body. I had never experienced a religion that viewed the body as a doorway to spiritual transformation and accomplished this through dance. Now, dance plays a central role in other cultures and systems of belief. However, Tantric Buddhism integrates dance as an essential component of its many elaborate ritual events. And it is quite common to have these sacred dances peppered throughout a multi-day ritual event. But in this photograph, we see a ritual contained within the structure of a dance. This is a black hat dance. The dance begins, and at a certain point in the middle of the dance, the dancers will stop in a formation, usually a circle, and then out will come a regular monk carrying the religious implements. In this case, it's this wooden platform with the offering cake. He'll place it in the appropriate spot, and then out will come the ceremonial ritual master. And he comes out wearing his ceremonial monk robe. It is not a dance costume. And he performs, in this case, a libation offering to the earth deities. This is a ground consecration ceremony in which offerings are made to the earth deities who hold power over the earth to extract their oath that this event may proceed with all success and auspiciousness. And once this offering is made to the earth deity, then the ritual master will exit, the ritual implements will be removed, and the dancers will proceed with the dance until it is completed. The dances have numerous functions, and some are not even meant to be seen by the public. They may serve as offerings, as invocations of a deity, as purifying action to consecrate the environment and create sacred space, as we see in this particular dance, as subjugation and exorcism of negative forces, and as narrative vehicles for moral instruction. So now we will see some video excerpts of dances that serve these functions. And this is a classic subjugation dance. Through the dance movements and the meditations that the dancers and the ritual masters are doing, they are coalescing negative forces into that little black triangle on the woven mat in the center of the ground. And once they have been gathered into that spot, they will be liberated and transformed. These dances are wearing wrathful masks, and they are portraying fierce energy, the kind of energy that is needed to deal with negative forces and obstacles. And you can also see here that the sacred musicians are part of the dance. Now, this is a very different kind of dance. This is the dance of the 16 offering goddesses. And so they are dancing offerings to the saint that brought Buddhism from India to Tibet and Bhutan. And in this dance, as in every single dance, the costumes are saturated with visual cues to remind one of the Buddhist teachings and of exactly who these particular characters are. These are dakinis, and they are cloaked in dakini lace or aprons of bone ornaments. And this is something that reminds one of impermanence. And this dance is an invocation, an invocatory dance, invoking the presence of the saint who brought Buddhism from India to Tibet and Bhutan. The story goes that when Guru Rinpoche, this particular saint, was leaving Tibet forever to go to other realms, his chief disciple asked him, please give us a method of communicating with you so that we can call you back when we need you. And the Guru gave her this prayer dance, sort of as a hotline to call the Guru whenever his presence was needed. And so this dance is performed to invoke the Guru's presence on the final day of the Sechu. It's also performed regularly in ritual events to call the presence of this saint. And you can really see here how it is part of a ritual event. You have the monks seated and performing their rituals. You have people making prostrations in the perimeter. And this is a black hat dance. It is a ground consecration. It is usually performed toward the beginning of a sechu to consecrate the ground as sacred. And it's important to create this sacred space because the dances will be performed in this space. The dances are considered mandalas, sacred constructions of cosmic universes, pure lands of the deities. And they come appointed with the latest technology, like high-tech security guard system and beautiful walkways and stairways and portals and guards and entourages that lead one to the central place of the deity or the divine in the center. And so the space must be safe and sacred in order for these danced mandalas to occur. And if you've ever seen a sand mandala constructed, you would know that at the very end, they deconstruct it and pour the grains of sand into a body of water. And in much the same way, these dances dissolve just like a sand mandala till the ground is empty. Most extraordinary is how Tantric Buddhism integrates dance as part of its meditative technology, performed to effect a physical and mental transformation. So let me try to unpack that idea, a meditative technology. Around 2,600 years ago, there was a teacher called the Buddha, and he espoused the idea that the human condition was beset with suffering. And he offered an antidote to that suffering, which he called the Eightfold Path. And this Eightfold Path had elements like moral discipline, right speech, right thinking, right livelihood, right action, and eventually it gets to right mindfulness and right meditative absorption. So basically, meditation was offered as a remedy to our state of suffering. Throughout the millennia, Buddhist practitioners have worked on their meditation practices for this reason. They go into retreats for years, and when they come out, they have hopefully accomplished their meditation techniques. They have come up with countless meditation techniques. There are so many varieties. And these sacred dances are embodied extensions of some of the meditations that are used. These dances are drawn from a particular understanding of the body-mind continuum as a site full of potential for dramatic transformation. The dances are an aspect of practice designed to bridge the gap between our present human condition and our aspiration for enlightened mind. Cham are performed, taught, and enthusiastically promoted by many of the highest Buddhist masters. Now, the Bhutanese also have a myriad of folk forms in addition to the sacred dances. And they are infused into every type of occasion, including archery competitions, consecration of new art objects, national holidays, religious rituals, affairs of state, royal birthdays and weddings, and simple social gatherings. In Bhutan, there seems to be a dance connected to every one of life's experiences. And so now we'll take a look at a men's folk dance tradition called Wangje. So the men are wearing the go, which is the national attire for men. It looks like a wraparound robe. And they also sing the words of the dance. They're expected to do that. And this is a particular folk dance tradition for which there is a different version in the various districts. So each district has its own version, and they also have their individual costumes based on where you're from. Confronted with these dances, the strange and colorful iconography, and deeply affecting sound, I had to learn more. I would return to my roots in the dance world that I had left some 30 years earlier and do much of my research in this institution, making regular use of the dance division and its collection. I'll read a bit of that story to you now. I reacquainted myself with the Jerome Robbins Dance Collection at the New York Public Library, which houses the largest, most comprehensive archive of dance material in the world. When I first arrived in New York as a dancer, I had spent wonderful hours there, immersed in viewing recordings of the works of my favorite choreographers. Now, I would do this again. It was there that a helpful librarian directed me to a 24-inch Mac computer with colorful attention-grabbing signage that said, "Discover the gods who dance." And he offered, "You might be interested in taking a look at this." He set me up at the computer station dedicated for use of the Bhutan Dance Database with a pair of headphones, and I was immediately enveloped by the primal sounds of the sacred Buddhist instruments. Colorful footage danced across the monitor, all of it transporting me to the stone courtyards beside the Bhutanese monasteries and fortresses halfway around the world. I have since used the Bhutan Dance Database for research pertaining to all of my projects on dance in Bhutan, preparing myself by learning the dances in advance of interviews and festivals. It has made all the difference to be able to walk into these situations with formulated questions and to be able to photograph the dances, already knowing what I want to capture. Now, I will take you back on my path of inquiry and discovery in Bhutan. I wanted an immersion into the experience and perspective of the practitioners, so I arranged to meet with Khenpo Buncho Tashi. At that time, he was the director of the National Museum of Bhutan. His title, Khenpo, indicates that he is a Buddhist abbot. He grew up in a monastery in the eastern part of the country and had danced the cham himself from the time he was a 12-year-old monk. I'll read a few excerpts from my conversations with Khenpo Tashi. And this is called The Dancing Guru. From the historical myths, it becomes apparent that the documentation of cham, like much of the early history of the region, hovers between fact and wondrous legend. For example, the key actor in disseminating cham was the tantric master, Guru Rinpoche. His renown as an accomplished tantric practitioner led to demand for his spiritual assistance across the Himalayas. The stories abound of how Guru Rinpoche marshaled supernatural powers through meditation and performing cham, converting and transforming the local deities into guardians of Buddhism. Khenpo Tashi explained there are two categories of cham dance in the Bhutanese tradition. One is the dances of the gods, usually performed by monks. The other consists of cham performed by laity. However, Khenpo Tashi emphasized, in reality, there is no difference. All cham are considered the sacred dance of Guru Rinpoche. Cham is said to be the timeless wisdom of the Buddha realm, transmitted into the human world through Guru Rinpoche and passed down for generations. Even the act of viewing cham is regarded as an opportunity for spiritual awakening, which the Bhutanese call tongdro, meaning liberation through seeing. As you can imagine, coming from a Western mindset, how astounding this was to learn that these dances are considered wisdom that emanated in the heavenly realm, and that they were danced by the culture's greatest enlightened master, Guru Rinpoche, who is considered by the people of the region to be the second Buddha. He's credited with bringing Buddhism from India to Tibet and Bhutan in the mid-8th century. And here we have a painting of Guru Rinpoche on the side of a rock, and you can see images. Let's go back to the rock. You can see, yes, thank you. You can see images like this throughout the landscape of Bhutan as you enter onto a hiking trail or along the footpath to a monastery or even along the side of the highway. His image is also always included inside temples and monasteries in Bhutan. And frequently, as pictured here, he is the central figure for the magnificent giant silk tapestries that are unfurled on the final morning of the Tsetchus. Now, it is even told that Guru Rinpoche himself performed the dances to accomplish miracles that ensured the flourishing of Buddhism in the region. This means the dances are fundamental to the very existence of Buddhism in the region. And this slide shows us the dance that is thought to be the very dance that Guru Rinpoche performed to ensure the flourishing of Buddhism in the Himalayan region. The story goes that the Tibetan Emperor Trisong Detsen, in the latter half of the 8th century, was engaged in this large project of building the first Buddhist monastery in Tibet. He was encountering tremendous resistance and obstacles, most likely by the indigenous belief system and power holders in that system. And so he called upon Guru Rinpoche to come and dispel these obstacles so that he could move forward with his project. And it is told that Guru Rinpoche came and performed rituals and meditations and dances to overcome, dispel, and convert these obstacles into guardian protectors of the new faith. And the monastery was built. Wherever you go in Bhutan, you are likely to be standing on sacred ground, where it is believed that the Guru meditated, taught, and danced. So let's go to Tiger's Nest. Yes, this is one of those sacred places in Bhutan. And the story goes that the Guru flew on the back of a tigress from Tibet to Bhutan to this very place. The tigress was his spiritual consort who transformed herself into a flying tigress, and together they flew, dispelling obstacles to the Buddhist faith all along the way, and arrived to this cliff in Bhutan where there's a cave, and there they meditated. And so today we have this magnificent temple complex built around this cave, right into the sheer side of the cliff. Now, many of the sacred dances are embodied danced expressions of complex visualizations conceived to transform the practitioner into an enlightened being, a Buddha. They are a wisdom expression meant to stir us into our awakened nature. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, it is believed that everyone has a Buddha nature at the essence. And all that is needed is to dust off those obscurations through moral action and meditation. Now, as you know, in the West, religion and dance do not generally intermix. We have very few dancing religious figures, nor do we have collections of religious texts that give accounts of dance as spiritual revelation. This idea intrigued me. So I decided to travel to the spiritual heartland of the country, to the Bhutan Valley, where many of these so-called treasure revelations or treasure dances were revealed. I had heard about a set of dances performed at a temple called Jampalakhan, and I was extremely curious about them. And as I researched Jampalakhan and the dances performed there, I realized that the dances were part of a larger spiritual tradition performed at Jampalakhan and in just a handful of places. Here we see Jampalakhan pictured at the very beginning of the festival that they hold there. And this festival begins with a procession around the entire grounds of the temple. And this is done to delineate the sacred space through which no negative force may penetrate. So you see the monks playing the sacred instruments and the dancers in their costumes circumambulating this very large temple campus to create that sacred space. These dances and rituals are attributed to the spiritual revelations received by the great treasure revealer Georgie Linga, who lived from 1346 to 1405. And here we have a beautiful piece from a larger mural of Georgie Linga that hangs in the Buli Monastery just up the road from Jampalakhan. And Buli Monastery is another stronghold of Georgie Linga's treasure traditions. We see from this painting that he is a tantric practitioner, very closely tied to Guru Rinpoche. And you can see this, he's seated in a meditative posture. He's holding tantric implements. In his left hand is the bell of emptiness, empty of inherent or fixed notions of identity or fixed notions of the way things are. In his right hand, he is playing the damaru. This is a small two-sided drum with two little leather straps at the bottom to which are attached beads. And when the practitioner rotates the forearm repeatedly, the beaters throb against the side of the drum, creating a rattling sound that is meant to awaken us to our enlightened nature. On his head, he's wearing the 5-petal lotus hat of Guru Rinpoche. This was a hat gifted to Guru Rinpoche. He wore it for important ceremonial occasions, and today tantric practitioners wear this hat for important ritual occasions. It's folded into 5 folds to represent 5 petals of a lotus, and the lotus is a very important symbol in Vajrayana Buddhism. The lotus flower derives its nourishment from the mud and muck at the bottom of the lake. But once the beautiful bloom emerges above the water, it is pristine, pure, and unblemished, just as we are. So one of the most exciting aspects of Bhutan's dances is this idea that an entire dance repertoire came into being through the visionary experiences of highly accomplished spiritual masters. Just imagine if the prophets of the Old Testament returned from their desert wanderings and communion with God, having visualized choreography, and came back to preach their prophecy through dance. This is basically what we have in this treasured tradition. The revealed treasures, or terma as they're called in Tibetan, may include sacred texts, objects, relics extracted from the landscape, like from a lake bed or crevice in a mountain pass or hidden valley. Or they may be visions or visions of dances that are believed to be the wisdom teachings of Guru Rinpoche, hidden by his direct disciples for later rediscovery during times when the spiritual need would arise. For me, going to Bhutan would be like going on a giant dance treasure hunt. Once there, I was warmly welcomed by Chakar Lam Dorji and the members of his family, and given remarkable access and insight into these unique traditions. These ritual and dance practices are largely kept alive because of the commitment of this man pictured here, Chakar Lama, and his descendants. And I'll share a bit of part 5 of the book called Searching for Treasure. Aboard the 48-seat Druk Air prop plane on a pristine day, I made the storybook domestic flight with eye-popping views of the major snowy peaks of the eastern Himalayas. 25 minutes later, I landed on a runway in the middle of a golden buckwheat field next to a one-room airport that doesn't even claim a security scanning machine. I was heading to the Bhutan Valley to visit Chakar Lam Dorji, the then 88-year-old lineage holder, keeper, and guardian of Dorje Lingpa's dance and ritual traditions. We drove off toward the Lama's house, and our driver stopped along the roadside to give a lift to a little old man with a cane out for a mid-morning walk. He chatted in the native language with my guide and driver. As we pulled into the driveway of the Lama's house, my guide said to me, "You can give the Lama a kata when you get out of the car." I thought to myself, well, of course I can. That was the plan. Then the driver leaned over and whispered the same instructions to me. It was then it dawned on me that our backseat passenger was the Lama. My guide and I, along with our driver, went into the Lama's house and upstairs to his sitting room where we were offered tea and cookies. The Chakar Lama is a non-monastic, married lay priest called a Gomchen, which means great meditator. In Bhutan, where the aspiration of attaining enlightenment is not uncommon, there are many different types of religious practitioners. As the Lama had been apprised of my interest in Dorje Lingpa's treasure dance tradition, we launched into the interview. The festival takes place just down the road from the Chakar Lama's residence at the Jampalahang Temple. Chakar Lam Dorji's earliest childhood memories of the festival are of how his parents worked exceedingly hard to produce the event. At the age of 12, he started learning the dances. His father passed away quite young, so his uncle taught him the dances. And by the age of 20, he had become the champon, or dance master, shouldering the responsibility for maintaining the treasured dances of Dorje Lingpa. Since the dances and ritual cycles are performed in only a few places in Bhutan, Chakar Lam Dorji feels his primary responsibility is to organize the festival every year. Nowadays, the Lama's eldest son, Tenzin, having performed as the champon for many years, has taken on these responsibilities, as well as the job of training the community's cham dancers. And now we're going to take a look at one of these wonderful Dorje Lingpa treasure dances. So this is a drum dance. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, the drum is the drum of Dharma, or drum of Buddhism. And the drum represents wisdom, and the hooked drumstick represents skillful means or skillful action. And when the two unite to produce sound, the sound is believed to offer liberation. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at a few more photos from the treasure dances of Georgie Lingpa. This is a sword dance. The sword in Vajrayana Buddhism is a flaming sword, a transmutative sword meant to transmute the poisons that cause our suffering. So the sword, through the movements in the dance, transmutes the poison of greed into generosity, hatred into loving kindness, and ignorance into discerning wisdom. And next, we have a Georgie Lingpa story ballet. It's a dance drama, and this is such a rare dance. Another Georgie Lingpa treasure, performed only in probably 2 places in the country. And as in the story, the dance dramas in general, this genre contains a lot of pantomime, as you might guess, and slapstick humor. And this humor is usually dispensed by the apsaras, or the jesters. And you see them pictured here in the striped pajamas with the patches on their back and bottoms. And they romp around throughout these festivals, but specifically in these dance dramas, and just poke fun at everybody, and at the dance steps and the rituals and everything. And they are allowed to do that. And finally, next slide, we have the beautiful Georgie Lingpa Heroes dance. And heroes in Buddhism are not warriors that go off to foreign wars, but they stay right here and protect you on your path to enlightenment. And these heroes are envisioned as inhabiting Guru Rinpoche's copper-colored mountain paradise, and they are believed to sing and dance the teachings of Buddhism amidst the rainbows that are shimmering in this paradise. And their costume contains all the cues to help you along. And in the left hand, they are ringing the bell of emptiness. In the right hand, they are rattling the damaru. And these instruments are sounded and choreographed into the actual dance steps So that is the Georgie Linga Heroes Dance. Now, let's address the topic that everyone who visits Bhutan wants to know about: gross national happiness, or GNH, the metric by which Bhutanese society measures its success. His Majesty, the fourth King of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk, sparked this initiative shortly after his coronation, way back in 1974. He had this idea that human happiness was important, more important than economic growth, the metric that drives the capitalist measure of success. And this king also insisted that the country transition from a monarchy to a democratic form of government, which it did in 2008. Now, at first, GNH was simply a guiding principle asking, does a policy really promote the happiness of the people that the king and the ministers would ask and consider with respect to policy and development decisions? But once the philosophy moved beyond Bhutan, out into the public fora, it became imperative to flesh out actual happiness metrics and indicators. So today, GNH provides explicit criteria to guide and measure Bhutan's growth and development. The happiness and satisfaction of the people is regularly surveyed and evaluated based on 9 domains. And these domains are living standards, education, health, environment, community vitality, time use, psychological well-being, good governance, and cultural resilience. Similarly, all policies and programs are subjected to strict GNH screening tool to assess their impact on markers such as effects on population stress levels, opportunities for cultural participation, facilitation of physical exercise, impact on the environment. These factors will determine the acceptance or rejection of a project. Now just ponder the 4 priorities at the core of GNH. Equitable and sustainable development, preservation of the environment, preservation and promotion of the country's unique cultural heritage, provision of good, responsive governance. Given the world's spiraling economic inequities, uncompassionate policies dispensed by so many in positions of power, and the unforgiving climate catastrophe that we are all contending with, these guiding principles are more essential and resonant than ever. In fact, Bhutan is the only carbon negative country in the world. This means it sequesters more carbon dioxide than it generates. And this is in large part because of the government's commitment to remain carbon neutral for all time. Not just for one administration, but for all enduring time. And it has initiatives to support this, such as its mandate to always maintain a minimum of 60% of its total land mass under forest cover. But now, I will point out a not so obvious illustration of the 4th pillar of GNH, good responsive governance, with a passage from the book called The Cham Tax. The lay dancers are culled from the local communities through a type of labor tax levied on each household. Through this system, ordinary people are compelled to learn the cham and folk dances in order to perform them at the festivals. I laughed when Khenpo Tashi told me this and exclaimed, "You mean there is a cham tax?" He replied, "Yes, a cham tax." This remarkable concept indicates that the Bhutanese hold dance to be something of significant value. Dance is not merely a discretionary social pastime, pleasant entertainment, or fitness activity. Performing dances at a tsechu or other ritual event is of such high importance that it is considered a source of spiritual merit. Generating merit is a basic building block of Buddhist practice. In Himalayan Buddhism, Buddhism, one engages in virtuous acts not only to purify one's own karma, but always to extend the positive consequences to all sentient beings. If Cham is considered Tongdrol, capable of liberating upon sight, just imagine the spiritual heft of performing this task on behalf of one's family for the benefit of the community, and even for random viewers like tourists, birds, and insects. In essence, this is a tax to ensure pillar number 3, the preservation and promotion of the country's unique cultural heritage. But it has the additional benefits of promoting community vitality and intergenerational harmony. Everyone looks forward to the local annual Sechu. Extended families attend the events together. And you can see in this photo how densely packed the observers are, and these are locals. They dress in their finest. They come with their woven mats and picnics and are ready to camp out for the duration of the event. The volunteer dancers feel a deep sense of commitment about what they are doing. And you'll get a sense of this from reading my interviews with the volunteer dancers from the lay communities. And here we see a photo of some female folk dance volunteers. When one volunteers to perform in a Sechu, one is expected to attend rehearsals for a full month in advance. And these are full day rehearsals. And so whatever your occupation is in regular life, whether you are a farmer, a teacher, a civil servant, a shop owner, whatever you are doing, someone else in your family or in the community will have to take over your responsibilities while you are off at rehearsal for a month. And so this idea of volunteering to dance really places demands on the entire ecosystem of the village or community. And here we have male lay folk dance volunteers, and they are performing a jay, and they are dressed as members of the original volunteer militia that was formed as the original defense of the country in its early stages, and they didn't have a standing army. And so they are also engaged and in an historic reenactment that occurred right there at the Punakadzong and in the surrounding fields. Community vitality and intergenerational harmony are known elements of a happy, healthy society. And this is the result of good, responsive government with the goal of creating policies and programs like community Sechus that benefit real people. As the Bhutan Legal Code of 1729 states, the reason for instituting state laws is for the very sake of the happiness of the people. The happiness of the people. So, gross national happiness is a dynamic national project, not mere rhetoric, and the dances of Bhutan play an important part in its generation. So I hope you can understand why I have been captivated by the dances of Bhutan, both sacred and folk. They form the warp and weft of life in this faraway Himalayan land of mountains and valleys. They have a legacy of real power, and they are integral to spiritual life. And life in Bhutan has an all-pervading spiritual focus. They are transformational for the dancer, for the viewer, and by extension, for the society. They are employed for every occasion and experience. They connect the people with their history, geography, values, forebears, and living community, and are therefore a source of identity and societal cohesion. As anyone can observe, when the community volunteers enter the dance ground and breezily perform a folk dance. Or when the monks chant the mantra during a ritual while effortlessly performing a complex choreography of hand gestures. Or when the little kids run around and repeatedly practice the big leap from the cham dances while they're engaged in their daily play. Dance is the Bhutanese way of being in the world. These dances offer another way of engaging in and amplifying the experience of life because they express what words cannot. Thank you so much for listening and joining in this evening. If you are interested in purchasing the book, you can go to my website, www.karengreenspan.com, and click on the book. But thank you so much for being with us this evening. And now I hand the mic back over to Linda Murray to introduce our panel.
Thank you so much, Karen, for that wonderful presentation. I think we learned an incredible amount. So I'd like to move on to our panel discussion and introduce our esteemed guests. We have Karma Deki, who is the culture director for the United Bhutanese Association of New York, and also has the distinction of being the first female filmmaker from Bhutan. Her film, Kushutara, Pattern of Love, won several national and international awards. We also have our dear friend with us, Joseph Houseal, who is the director of Core of Culture, and he is in his own right an Asian dance scholar and practitioner, and he's accompanied by Gessie Houghton, who is the director of the Institute of Ecotechnics, and he has worked in the field of art and dance for many, many years. And then two of my favorite people in the world, my colleagues, Tanisha Jones, who is the assistant curator of the Jerome Robbins Dance Division and my right hand and better half. Those of you who interact with both of us know she's the one who's really in charge. And then my predecessor, the incredible Jan Schmidt, curator emeritus of the Jerome Robbins Dance Division. So welcome, panel. Karma, I'd like to start with you as the Bhutanese representative on the panel. Karen wove a picture of dance being integral to the way of life of the Bhutanese people. And I'm just wondering, for you, like, how much did these ritual and folk dances play into your everyday life and experience?
Okay. First of all, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Linda, and all the organizers of tonight's event at the New York Public Library for the performing art, for giving me the opportunity to participate as a panelist. So on behalf of people of the United Bhutanese Associations of New York and on my own behalf, I would like to extend my warm congratulations to Karen Greenspan on her beautiful book, Footfalls from the Land of Happiness, Journey into the Dances of Bhutan. I extend my deepest gratitude to all of my fellow panelists for your amazing work in documenting, archiving, and making accessible to the public the living culture and traditions of my country, Bhutan. So you have made valuable contributions towards one of the pillars of GNH, the preservation and promotion of our culture, which strengthens Bhutan's identity and sovereignty. So yes, I mean, Karen Greenspan has given a lot of information about dances, which many of the Bhutanese may not be knowing. Many of things that she has just educated many of us online and by releasing the book, so which is a very big appreciation from all of us from Bhutan for a very big project that she has accomplished, and all the friends that who have been very supportive to her. So I grew up in the capital city of Thimphu, surrounded by my mother's relative who came from district of Khunsi. It's the eastern part of Bhutan. This region is known for its refined weaving culture So weaving is one of the 13 sacred art of Bhutan, and I have learned the craft sitting alongside my mother, who is highly skilled weaver. So before I left for the school each morning, my job was to thread like 6 foot long, loom to ready it for her to weave the day when I'm off to school. So I probably did not appreciate the imprint this culture experiences made up on me at the time when I was a little girl. But when I decided on a subject for my first feature length film, Kishthara Pattern of Love, I was drawn to tell the story of an aspect of our culture weaving that was quite personal for me. So in recent times, modernizations and globalizations with their promise of material, growth and consumption-oriented ideals threatens the culture, traditions, and spirituality of our country. But as a Bhutanese citizen currently living abroad here in New York, I'm constantly made aware of the distinctiveness of our culture, traditions, which have so defined me, my nations, and my national discourse from the Buddhist perspective, like culture, tradition, religious belief, and the natural environment are all they dynamically woven in the web of life. So the wise people who drafted the constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan understood the value of arts and culture to the country's identity and sovereignty, and included the Article 4, which affirms the state shall endeavor to preserve and protect cultural heritage of the country to enrich society and the cultural life of the citizen. So as a culture writer of the United Bhutanese Association of New York, I strive to create opportunities for culture, learning, and performance within the Bhutanese community living in New York. So all of our social events are like songs and dances and traditions, and that fills us with national pride and culture value in spite of our distance from the homeland. So we teach young kids that they are grown and brought up here who have no touch with our culture. So we teach them how to dance, how to speak, and how to write. So we continue to volunteer, rehearse, and offer our cultural expressions just as we would in Bhutan.
Yeah. And Karen referred to it as cultural resilience. And I was really struck by the idea of both the monastic and the governmental residing in the same space. Do you think that contributes to that cultural resilience, the close proximity of the Buddhist religion to the government? Or do you feel that it's a different entity entirely?
From my point of view, I think I would say maybe it's a different point of view.
Yeah. Joseph and Gessie, you also undertook a massive project with Bhutanese dance, and the footage that Karen highlighted tonight was from your research and endeavors in the country. Joseph, you work particularly in the protection of endangered dances. Can you tell everybody how you came to experience Bhutanese dance and the journey that it took you and Gessie on?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us. I'm so glad my colleague Gessie is here, and he and I are representing Core of Culture. The story I want to highlight tonight is this great partnership that Core of Culture, me and Gessie, had with Madeline Nichols, who was a former curator of the Drum of Dance Division, Jan Schmidt, Tanisha Jones, me and Gessie. We were this unbeatable team, and then I realized that lasted for 11 years. It took us from baby to graduation to get the Bhutan Dance Database up and running at the New York Public Library. Now, in 2001, 2002, we got our first intimations from Stephen Little at the Honolulu Academy of Arts that the Kingdom of Bhutan was ready to do its first international exhibition, 6 museums in America and Europe. It would be the final 5 years of the absolute monarchy in Bhutan. And they knew that in 2008, the king would abdicate and the country would turn into a constitutional democracy, ending the absolute monarchy. So we knew we had 5 years of the absolute monarchy in which the kingdom and the king wanted us to survey and document the dances, which had never really been done. In the early days, Madeline Nichols was on our board, and we had such a tall order. We were going to do ethnography. We were going to do an art exhibit. We were going to be involved in the art exhibit. We were going to create an archive. We were going to put it in the Jerome Robbins Dance Division. And Madeline Nichols said, well then, put everything you need to do in at the beginning. You're going to do ethnography. What's your method? Where's your performance anthropologist? We got a really good one. You're going to do an archive. Who's going to design your archive? What's your copyright policy? What's your archival technological pipeline from the Himalayas to the Jerome Robbins Dance Division? Well, it was several years later when she retired and Jan Schmidt took over, who was the director of original documentation at the New York Public Library. So she knew just what to do with us. And although a lot of things changed, Madeline Nichols' original advice to try to get everything in there at the beginning, have a copyright plan, have an archival plan, have a research plan. It will change, don't worry, but have the plan. And it was that foresight that I continue to use when I design projects that allowed us to have not no problems, but fewer than we would have had otherwise. So we could handle the copyright, we could give it to the library without problems. And Jan and Tanisha took it from there. And one of the things I want to point out was that this endeavor to create the Bhutan Dance Database and Archive was really us dance professionals getting together and doing it. It was beyond the scope of the very large museum exhibition show. And it was because of that show that we were funded to do the documentation. That's where it ended. So everything else was an effort of Core of Culture and the Jerome Robbins Dance Division and our team to get it digitized, to get it cataloged, to get it online. And so I just want to introduce Gessie, my colleague, Gessie Houghton, who designed the dance database. And one of the things that Madeline couldn't have projected we would need at the end was a Karen Greenspan, a researcher who would say, okay, we got this great database now. The whole idea was to give it to the future. Well, you can't invent the researcher that's going to go use it and make original material from it. So the fact that Karen came in and used material justified its existence in a lot of ways and proved that the database that Gessie created is effective and will last for a long time. So I just want to say it's so great to see everybody. Let's do it all again. And let me turn it over to Gessie Houghton to describe how he created the Bhutan Dance Database that we're all talking about now.
Well, thanks, Joseph, for that. I'm not sure I can live up to your expectations here. But I do agree totally that I'd like to say a huge thank you to Karen, because Karen, in her book, has proven, as you say, that the database has a function. When you design a database, when I first started to make the database, I did it for one reason. I was in the field with Joseph. We would spend 2 months in Bhutan and leave, and then maybe 2 months out, London, wherever, India, whatever, back into Bhutan for another 2 months, in, out, and each time we were in, we were filming maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 set shoots. Now that's 100 hours of film, maybe 60 hours of film. And just to remember, some of these set shoots occur at exactly the same time of the month. So you might be doing 3 set shoots simultaneously. And we might be able to say, could you do your set shoot 2 days later and you do your set shoot 2 days earlier, so that we can actually film both of them together? And then we would go into one place, one part of the country, and film it. And then I had all this film, and Joseph was writing notebooks, but I had no way to log the film. So in fact, the database begins as a practical tool for me to keep track of the tapes and what is on each tape. And if a dance is 3 hours long, or a dance is 10 minutes long, that is how much tape there is for that dance. And some of the dances might take a whole day. When you see the Guru Tsetu dances, it's one whole day of dancing. So that would be 8 or 9 tapes. So how do I go and look at those tapes? Well, I need some way to track them. So the database begins quite simply as a way for me to keep track of what is on each of these tapes. It has a date, and it has maybe 3 dances, maybe 1 dance, maybe half a dance. Then I realized that you have to add information to those simple visual images. And that was where I began to expand the database. And then the database becomes something else. When it reaches New York, then it needs to have a front end that allows people in New York to appear, as Karen described, to see this thing and to just jump in and to try to navigate their way around. Because nobody knows what a dakini is. Nobody knows what a tsetu is or the jei. Nobody has any idea of what these things are. Or the different parts of Japan where the same dance is performed in a different place and it looks entirely different. But it might be the same dance. Or 2 dances that don't look at all the same, you know, that are in fact completely different. How do you sort through it all? And as Joseph was saying, that there's 500 hours of dance footage. How do you know when you're in New York looking at a screen what it is? So the dance database continues to develop, and there's still much more to be put in. Joseph has all his ethnographic notebooks. Those need to be in there. The story of what's behind them. But we always thought that New York was the place to have it because of New York's primacy, in fact, as the repository of dance. But I took the entire database to the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. Now they are anthropologists. They're specialists in visual anthropology. And they have the Tibet collection. They also have all of Michael Aris's photographs. So I thought they would be really interested in it. I thought there are probably 50 PhDs in that combined archive. And nobody's picked that up. I think Karen is really the first person to explore the database and to see some of the richness in there. So I'm delighted for that. But I'd just like to say in finishing, it's not just an anthropological research tool. The reason we made this tool was because we realized that the dances in in Bhutan are in grave danger. They're in danger of disappearing. And I think just listening to Karma Deki and possibly also to Karen in tandem, Karen recognizes the wonders of what there is in Bhutan, but I think Karma is also aware of the dangers, because many of the dances that we filmed no longer are performed. And what we were doing was we were making a record so that when the Bhutanese people in 15, 20 years, when they've seen all the Indian television, when they've seen the sumo wrestling that gets piped in to Bhutan that didn't have it in the past, and they're all now practicing sumo wrestling moves, when they see what they have lost, we wanted a record that would be a visual record that they could go back and see what their fathers had done. And that's one of the reasons that the dances are done from we have 2 cameras. It's a complete body shot. There are no half shots of faces and things. It's a total record that the dance can be reconstructed. And that's the point for me.
Yeah, and that follows the best practices of dance division original documentation overall, and it speaks to the importance of dance archiving and also the specific work that Joseph does with endangered dances. I am going to come to Tanisha and Jan in a minute, but we've had a couple of questions come in from audience members, and just in case you don't know, people who are watching, there is a Q&A that you can put your questions in if you have them for the panelists, and I just wanted to make sure that we got to them. We had a question about the use of rotation in Bhutanese dance, and the question was whether the goal of the rotation was loss of consciousness. So I'd like to open that up to the panel. Actually, Karen, I was struck by your comment that the purpose of the dances is to stir in us our awakened nature. So it almost felt like it was less about loss of consciousness and about enlightenment and finding your consciousness, but I'd like to open that up to the panel.
Linda, go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, if I may. One of the things that's unique about Cham dancing, there are a number of spinning dances in the world. A number of dances spin in the world. Dervishes are a famous one. Hula spins. There's a lot of dances that spin, but almost all of them spin one direction. Bhutanese dancing, Cham spins this direction, then it spins that direction, then it spins this, while it's making a big circle. So it'll go this way, then it'll go that way, then it'll go this way, and then it will go that way. But it will go this way with 6 turns, landing and hopping and hopping and hopping, and go back up again and spin the other way. And then we'll keep doing this. Try doing that once, okay? We put a camera in the mask to follow the monk. We couldn't show it. It gave people motion sickness, okay? It was too wild. So the question is, there is a lull that happens in Sufic dancing where you're going around and around and around, and the consciousness goes beyond it. It's very much different, and in the Bhutanese dancing, because it goes both directions, unlike almost every other form of Asian dancing, which is rooted, classical Indian dancing, Tai Chi, Peking opera, think about it, it's rooted. Bhutanese dancing is gyroscopic, and because it spins both directions. And so it's a very good question about rotation and what makes it unique. I would call it more gyroscopic than rotational, specifically in Bhutan.
Karen, you wanted to say something on that topic as
Yes,
well.
but I would also add the goal is not to lose consciousness at all. They are maintaining awareness.
Yeah.
And that's very important to this whole practice.
Yeah. A follow-up question from the same audience member was whether the costumes are similar clothing to that worn to cremation funerals. I don't know if anybody can speak to that.
The mask dances costume?
Mm-hmm.
No, the mask dances costumes are especially for the festival that are not for the cremation. I think that's very completely different. Costumes are defined in a different patterns and different colors.
Thank you. We had a different audience member who was wondering if we could speak specifically about the footwear in the first segment of footage of folk dancing that was shown in the presentation. They just would like to know about the footwear.
I think Joseph should answer that.
I'm not sure.
The boots. I'm sure it's the boots.
Yeah.
But if it's the boots are made of yak hair, pounded. So it is a padding on the bottom, but it's a complete sole padding. And the upper part of the boot is made of yak skin and decorated. But it's basically a padding. So when they land, they have it. But it's often done barefoot. It depends on where you are. If you're out in the country, they dance barefoot as well. So I'm not exactly sure which clip that was referencing, but it's probably the beautiful, gorgeous boots. And those boots are pounded yak hair in the soles.
And then the follow-up question was, in the folk dances, do the men always dance separately from the women?
Joseph.
No.
Well. Can I just want to go back to the boots.
Yes,
you.
please do.
Because there's a very famous, Carmen will know it, there's a very famous picture of, is it the second king of Bhutan? I think it must have been, the first, where he is standing and he is receiving from the British Army Lieutenant Colonel, he's receiving the order of Queen Victoria. And in that photograph, he is barefooted. And you see a proud king of his country barefoot. Now, in Bhutan today, these boots are a symbol of refined elegance. And one of the first things you do when you kit yourself out, we were taken, Joseph and I went to have some boots made. My own feeling, and this is just cultural anthropology, if you like, is that the boots probably come in through Tibet from China, the style of boot. If you look at the old Chinese boots, it's that same flat-footed, but the boots have that, I think, history. But the Bhutanese are somewhat different. Now then, it's very hard to dance in boots. So I think of those boots as a formal element, and they suggest all those regal, grand, and the dance, I think in that very first dance, that will be a jé dance.
Right.
And the Jé are a kind of bodyguard, soldiers, a soldiery, a militia perhaps is a good word for it. But the Bhutanese in fact continue to return to that photo of their proud king without his shoes, without his boots, meeting the foreign powers. And we were very close to the head of the Royal Academy of Performing Arts, Tinley, and he told us that he had actually taken off his boots and he would leave his boots at times, and that the leaving of his boots in one place was a rejection of that whole new culture and return to the Bhutanese grounded in the earth. It's okay to be barefoot in Bhutan. If you're out planting in the field, you're not wearing your boots. So okay. there's a whole interesting thing about those boots. They're not easy to dance in. And I go back to one other thing that just we were talking about, this gyroscopic thing that Joseph is talking about. It's not going clockwise and then counterclockwise. Because as Joseph says, the Sufis always move counterclockwise. They move towards the heart. So they move towards the left. That's the Sufic dance. There's a reason for that. The Chinese tradition, and again, Tibetan, China, Bhutan, China, Tibet, Bhutan, the movement is the same. If you think of it, it's not a circle that then reverses. Think of it as a figure 8. That you are moving in one direction, but you don't go up to the top and then move the other way. It's the yin-yang symbol. You're inside that circle. You change directions. You move from a contrary to a clockwise direction without changing directions. So we have a wonderful, and you see, this is it. The Bhutan Dance Database has all these wonderful little gems in there. We have an interview with a Lama in Ladakh, Joseph, is that right? Yes. Togden Rinpoche in Ladakh, where he demonstrates the head movement and he starts to move his head and he's moving in one direction and then suddenly you realize that he's gone right up to the top and he's come down again. He's come down the other side. He hasn't stopped moving in one direction, but his head is going in the other direction. That is the secret of the Bhutanese dance. It's a spiral. It's not circles, it's spiral. And that's why they are so grounded. Now this is esoteric, but all that exists, and Karen will know it because she's looked at the film, all that exists in the dance database. It's full of these little hidden gems. But anybody in Bhutan will look at it and think, well, they know that, or they don't know that they know it, but it's somewhere in the culture.
Thank you.
It's in the film of the culture.
Okay. And thank you for that. And thank you for fleshing out answers to those last two questions. Did anybody want to pick up on the audience members' question about whether men and women always dance the folk dances separately?
They don't. They dance separately and together, and they come together and they go apart, and there's lots.
So it's not exclusive.
No.
Okay.
No, it's often a way of dancing with women and men together.
Yes. Can I also just add though, the monks, obviously that's the men dancing together, and many people believe that only monks dance the chant. However, Joseph, in a wonderful exchange that he created, he took a group to London of nuns who had been taught the Chan dances by a meditation teacher who was a specialist in dance. And he had no difficulty in teaching the nuns to dance. The problem was, could they do the kind of meditative sophistication that would allow them to dance? And the answer was yes.
Oh, wonderful. We're running out of time, so I want to make sure that we get to Jan and Tanisha. Yes, thank you very much, Gessie. So Jan and Tanisha, I know very well that the work that the two of you did on this project is some of the most invisible work. It's very clear when somebody's doing field work, what their purpose is, what their function is. They're out, they're filming, they're interacting with the community. And it's equally clear when somebody like Karen comes along and uses the material and makes a book and you have an outcome. But the work that we do in the dance division, it tends to be a little less visible. It tends to be harder to sort of put your finger on exactly what it is that we do, but it really is critical work. And it's the difference between these dances remaining discoverable for future generations and these dances becoming arcane. So Jan and Tanisha, can you talk about your specific roles in this project and how it builds into the larger work that the dance division does?
Thank you. Tanisha, is it okay if I start?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been on the panel, to the Bhutanese people, and to Evan, who's leaving us. I'm sorry to hear that you're going. And to the New York Public Library and the dance division in particular for having a place where people's collections can go, be preserved, and be made accessible to other people. And Karen's making this beautiful book with her photographs using both her trips and the digital dance database of Bhutan has, is proof of the importance of us doing this. Originally with the planning with Joseph, I know Madeline had a lot of things that she talked about, including rights, which we were really, we knew we were going to have a way to deliver these videos online, which we hadn't had before. So we knew you needed all those permissions, and to how to track all that footage and keep all those, and we knew there was going to be some 500-600 tapes. Keep track of who they are, when they are, where they are, and don't lose them, and then the and how to tape, keeping the standard. You want you want their hands, you want their feet, but also how do you tape in when you're not with a proscenium stage, but you're doing in the round. We had lots of conversations about that. And in the meantime, where you're out for 3 years recording all the materials, we were backstage trying to find the funding and to one, get the library to get the trusted repository up and running so we could save the materials. Two, so we could get the other materials digitized, so when we had a digital delivery system, we had more materials to do to put onto it. And three, to get the money to create the digital dance video delivery system. And that we got money, we got money from the Doors to Charitable Foundation to a couple $100,000 to create this site, which now has been, first we had hired a place, but now it has moved to, the library has moved it somewhere else. But in the moment, it was the first time the dance division, the library had a way to deliver digital files. And that meant and that the people that we had the rights, like we did with the Bhutan material, as we did with the Cambodian material of dancers who survived the Pol Pot regime that was done by Ann Bass, and then we also got the Ford Foundation grant that allowed us to get the newer collections that we got, Cunningham, Baryshnikov, Ron K. Brown, so that they could all also be digitized and put on this website. And then we started to deliver video, in the reading room and to the world where we had the rights, and that was amazing. And with that, I give it to Tanisha.
Well, thank you, Jan, for that. And I want to echo Jan's comments just about how incredibly special this project is. And this evening, I'm so honored to be a part of this panel and this discussion. This collection and this project is very close to my heart because it was the first major project that I worked on when I started at the library in the summer of 2007. And as Jan was mentioning, in the process of my getting involved in the project, as a audio and moving image archivist, my role was to ensure that the materials that Joseph and Gessie were providing us were going to be appropriately preserved and cataloged and made accessible to the public. And I even remember very specifically, it was shot on like Sony mini DV videotapes that were, digitized. It was high definition shot, as you know. And we had our wonderful preservation team, and specifically our very veteran preservation specialist, moving image specialist, Francis Georgie, who worked on this material and digitized this material for us. And it was a fortuitous situation because, as Jan pointed out, simultaneous to this collection coming to us, the library was building out its capacities to serve digital content to the public, and specifically digital audio and video. So when the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation was kind and gracious to grant us the funding to build out this, our digital collection site, it was the Bhutan collection that was really like the first featured collection that we worked with to upload onto the site. And the fact that it was cleared fully, rights were fully cleared, it really, the impetus to make this material broadly accessible was just such a boon and such a wonderful opportunity. In addition to that, we had the wonderful database that Gessie beautifully designed. And it was fascinating to hear that the methodology that Gessie had in developing that it was essentially originally a production log, and it has fleshed into this wonderfully contextualized tool. And you know, one of the things that was very interesting about implementing that at the library, we ended up introducing that to the public at the Library for the Performing Arts in June of 2011. So as Joseph said, it was literally a decade-long process. The genesis starting in 2001, the culmination of the database, you know, being presented to the public on June of 2011, and it was a situation where it's compatible, the database, to a Macintosh. It optimally performs on a Macintosh. And the library, interestingly, is a PC environment. And so in order to get, you know, the database station, you know, presented, it was, you know, some hoops that we had to go through, but the Jerome Robbins Dance Division is so committed, and it has been so committed to maintaining the database, keep making it accessible to the public. You know, we essentially adopted the commitment to, you know, support the Macintosh, you know, station, and the library, of course, eventually absolutely fully supports it. And it's been an incredible tool, and Karen's incredible work is a testament to that.
We're really out of time, but there was one other question on the feed that I wanted to address, which was somebody asked, why would Bhutan let these dance traditions die? And, you know, why is this tradition going to be lost? I wanted to say something very briefly about that myself, and then I wanted to give the panelists an opportunity to respond to that. As Joseph alluded to, I think the King of Bhutan took a very active approach by seeking out assistance to actually document this footage. And as Gessie alluded to, part of why these dances are under threat and why they are considered to be endangered dances is it's a country with a, you know, a modest population, and there's the culture is changing and shifting as other cultures start to become part and parcel of daily life there. So you have to anticipate that things are going to transform over time. And that's precisely why dance archiving matters, and that's why dance documentation matters. I just felt like I had to say that as the curator of the dance division, and now I will hand it off to the panelists if you want to respond to that, and then I think we'll have to wrap up for the evening. So if anybody wanted to respond to you know, why these dances matter and why they're under threat, and how the documentation that's being done and the subsequent research by Karen will help to carry that tradition forward.
I would like to say a very short view from my side. It's a concern about, you know, going to lose our traditions of the dances that have been captured many years ago. Which has been displayed here, and then which is not being continued back home. As far as I know, we have festivals in every district, and I was believing that everything is going as per you know, like what we have seen as a grown-up citizen there. But since the expertise here have seen that there are something missing, which is a very important point that I can take this message, and we have to really highlight on those things, and we should not lose something which is very precious to us. as very truly said that they have been photographed, every composition of the shots, that where we can see all the gestures and choreograph how the dances have been portrayed. So those are the things that I got educated from what we have had in this panelist. And thank you very much. And if there is anything that we need to carry on, because we are very small, and there are so many things to learn, and then and we get to learn so many things that with the people who are more know the value and have seen from outside world towards us. So it's very a good point and good a takeaway for me from this panelist. Thank you.
I could make, and Gessie, you probably want to say something too, but if I may, one of the things that's one of the greatest challenges, and the COVID thing has changed it a bit, to my mind, good. Mass tourism is really a scourge on the world. It really is. And one of the main things that mass tourism does is it takes something that's a spiritual inheritance and turns it into an economic commodity. And so suddenly these things that were spiritual in their entire design and intent and communal become looked at as a commodity. And in a lot of places, and certainly in Bhutan, they take it like it's a natural resource. Everybody gets money but the dancers, the taxi drivers, the hotels, everybody. But they look at the dances like the mountains. You don't pay for the mountains, you don't pay for the dances. So it's a very interesting situation, the double-edged sword of tourism, but it has a pernicious impact on most traditions.
Yeah, it's extremely complicated. We're talking about the loss of culture, I think, in many places. Right. I mean, I don't really know where to begin to answer that question. We worked with, I would say this, we worked with Karma Tsering, who I think Karma Deki will probably know, as a filmmaker. Karma Tsering was one of the, he predates Karma Deki as a filmmaker, but he became one of our cinematographers. I did one of the cameras, and Karma Tsering did the other camera. Karma speaks Japanese, Hindi, 5 of the dialects of Bhutan, and Nepalese too. So you have a very gifted young Bhutanese man. He was in his 30s. And we would go with Karma around the country. So you go to the Far East, they're speaking a different language. You go to Bumtang, which Karen mentioned. He was from Bumtang. The Bumtanga language is not the same language as in the capital. But Karma was he was our emissary. He would tell people what we were doing and why we were doing it. So we were very, very lucky to have somebody from the community who was a filmmaker who would just take his camera and walk into somebody's house and just say, "Excuse me, Karma Tsering here," and they would know who he was, and they were just happy to be filmed by Karma Tsering. There were dancers who said that now they could hang up their dancing shoes because they were in a Karma Tsering film. But what was important was Karma was giving us the local understanding. Karen showed some beautiful footage of the Chakalam and Chakalam Georgie. It was Karma was a good friend of Chakalam. Karma took us to be with Chakalam. Karma introduced us to what was going on. So we were going in from the side of the people. And they knew that they wanted their dances to be preserved because they knew that their dances were on rocky. There were certain dances they weren't doing anymore. A dance festival at Tetu is a very complex event. We don't do that dance anymore. It's too difficult. We can't get the young boys to learn that one. Okay? So when we gave the Bhutan Dance database to the Newark Public Library, we also gave the exact same thing to the National Library of Bhutan, to the National Archives of Bhutan. Right. Now, the National Archives of Bhutan took it, as they did with Karen's book. It's a great gift from the other side. And they put it on a shelf in a sacred space in the National Archives. I can almost guarantee that nobody in Bhutan has looked at that dance database yet. So the New York Public Library is the place that's put it out onto the internet, so Bhutanese people can go and see their own dances through the New York Public Library. Now, how strange is that? They have all the data, but they're not looking at it. It's preserved. The foreigners have given us this gift, and we keep it. It's sacred. However, I will say that many of the people who saw us taking such an interest in the dance, they were saying, why are these tulips, why are these foreigners so interested in our dance? What is it about our dance that's that important? We do it every year. Why are they interested in the way we do our birdra? Why is it that important? But you could see that they were interested by our interest.
Yeah.
And it's not just that as cultural repositories, we stand there and we hold something and we reflect it. Most people in the West don't understand what they're seeing. These are very, very complex things, and Karen will go into some of that. But what is important is that you show that as the beautiful edifice begins to crumble a little and begins to totter, you can help support it by your outside interest. And that is the function of interchange of cultures. We're now living in a global culture. It's syncretism now. It's not just the West going in and telling people how to do the dance, because they don't know who Merce Cunningham is in Bhutan. They have their own traditions, but the Western tradition helps to support by being interested in it. Don't interpret it, just appreciate it.
I think this conversation could go on for much, much longer, but unfortunately we have to leave it there for this evening. People have to get to their dinners. But I want to thank all the staff who worked on the program tonight, and to Karma, Gessie, Joseph, Tanisha, Jan, and of course, Karen. Thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom this evening, and for giving us this glimpse into the wonderful world of Bhutanese dance. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a great evening.
Thank you.